I'm going to talk mostly about slope as it pertains to 2 points. Okay? X sub 1, y sub 1, or x1, y1. That's just the first point. And then x sub 2, y sub 2, or x2, y2, that's the second point. Usually it doesn't matter which point you choose as your first point and which point you choose as your second point. Okay? Just so long as you have 2 points, you can find the slope. Okay, it has to do with that flatness or steepness. That's what slope really is. Okay? And you probably remember the formula? Do you? Write it down. Write it down, write it down. Write down the slope formula if you remember. And then I'll put it up there and see if you're right. Conversation. There's your slope formula. How many had it? Good job. Now, there's lots of ways that you can represent the slope formula, and you can talk about what it means. The difference in the y's over the difference in the x's. The biggest thing, the biggest mistake that I see when it comes to slope, there's 2 things actually. One is people mix it up and they put the x's on top and the y's on the bottom. Remember, another way to think of slope is rise over run. Rise is an upward kind of idea. Obviously it can go down as well, but if you think of rise over run, you think about vertical change. And when we talk about vertical change, we're talking about y's. We talk about horizontal change, difference in x's, then we're talking about run. All of those things mean slope. Okay. The other mistake that I often see is that sometimes people choose to start with y2, but then down below they start with x1. So whichever point you decide to start with, you have to start with both in the numerator and the denominator. Okay? So wherever your starting point is, if you start with the second point and you do your subtraction, you have to start with the second point down here. The truth is the formula could easily be y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. You get the same answer, and that's okay. Question?
Not the same as delta y.
Yep, delta y over delta x. Change of y over change of x. Absolutely. Other question? No? How many of you remember this formula? Okay, good. You need to know it. So, almost all the exercises that you're going to do today will allow you to use this formula. All you've got to do is find 2 points on the graph, any of the 2 points that are on the graph, and you can determine the slope between those 2 points. And so long as it's a straight line, the slope will be the same. Okay. Later on, when you get to more advanced math, you will be able to find slope between 2 points from a curve, and the slope actually changes as you move through the curve. Okay? So, let's do a quick example. So here are 2 points. Please find the slope. I will tell you that because we're going to be dealing a lot with fractions when we work with slope, please leave your answer as a fraction. If it is an improper fraction, please do not change it to a mixed number. Leave it as an improper fraction. So, here's what we should have gotten. Negative 15 minus negative 16. That's another area where people mess up. It's always minus in the middle. Okay? Don't forget to keep your signs straight. This is still negative 16. Positive 19. Okay? Always minus in the middle. So when I subtract a negative, that turns into what? Positive or addition. So what you should have gotten is 1 over negative 26. It is possible that had you started in a different direction, you would have gotten it negative 1 over 26. All of those things are the same as a negative in the front. Those all equal each other. My preference is to put the negative in front of the whole thing. Okay? But I would accept any of those. All right. How many had that? Very good. Moving on. Let's look at a graph. Quick sketch. Just make a quick sketch of it. Or actually, if you want to take a picture and do better than a sketch, I'm fine with that too. I'm actually going to show you 2 different ways to find the slope of this line. Okay? and either one is acceptable. Except the work will be different for either method. So, as I stated here, you do need to find 2 points. You're still going to need 2 points. And I'm specific about make sure they go exactly through grid marks. Meaning, if I chose this point right here, the only way I could know the coordinates of that point is if they were given to me. Otherwise, you're going to have to estimate. Okay, obviously the y value is 3, that's not a big deal. But the x value that's associated with this is somewhere in here. I don't know exactly what that x value is going to be, so you want to stay away from points like that when you're trying to find slope. You want to find points that go exactly through a set of grid marks, so there's no guessing involved. And here's the that I chose, that I highlighted there in red. There's no guessing involved what the coordinates of those points are. There's no estimating required. Now, I could have just as easily also chosen this point right here. That would have been fine, because it clearly goes through some grid marks. I could have also chosen this point down here. So you have 4 options for this particular line, for this particular graph. I just happened to select these 2 up here. Okay. If you were to have chosen either this point as well or this point, you'd still get the same slope. The work would just look different. Okay. So from here, I'm going to actually find the slope using the slope formula, using the coordinates of these 2 points. Okay, and those are the 2 points, -2, 4, and 0, 1. Go ahead and find the slope of those quick. Go. So, should have got -3/2, or -3/2. How many had that? Very good. Okay, so when you get to a quiz or test and you need to show work, this is the work that you need to show. As simple as the arithmetic might be, I want you to write it out anyway. Again, as we've talked about, common mistakes that'll happen is people put the x's on top, so that way I can help fix you, and sometimes forgetting subtraction, that it's always subtraction. Okay. Now, I could, like I said, I'm going to show you another method where you could actually just count. Okay. See, you could just count vertically and horizontally from one point to the other. You could go from the top point and move your way down to the bottom point. And I say vertically and horizontally. You actually have to count vertical change and horizontal change. I actually chose, in my particular situation, to go up and then over. So I started here at this point, 0, 1. And here's the work that you would have to show if you wanted to do it this way. Just draw this little line here and indicate how many units up. Since I'm going up, it's +3. Since I'm going left, it's -2. Okay? If I would have gone from here, it would be down 3, so then it would be -3, and then right 2, so +2. Either way, I get the same thing. Okay? You're welcome to use that method too when given a graph and you have those exact points. Just make sure you draw me a little triangle here so I know where your numbers came from. Okay, I know you know how to count. So, either one of those is fine. The other thing that's going to happen through the course of your homework today is you're going to be given a table of values to find slope from. Understand a table of values is just a bunch of points, an x and a y that go together. So when you're given a table of values, you've actually been given a series of different points, and then once you have the points, you can use the slope formula to find the slope. One last thing, and we should be good to go. Questions so far? You know this already. You know about slope-intercept form, where m equals the slope and b equals the y-intercept. My guess is you don't know how to find slope and y-intercept from an equation that's in standard form. Okay, that I'm going to show you today. So, those of you who have it ingrained in your mind that you always have to convert everything into slope-intercept form, you can move away from that. If it's already in slope-intercept form, great. But if it's in standard form, I can pick off the slope and y-intercept right now, not rearranging anything. Does anybody know what the slope is right now? Yeah? It is not A. Yeah?
Negative
It is not negative A. Fantastic, you guys are going to learn something today. Maddie's. No. No, alright. Alright, here we go. This is good. We're going to learn something today. Here's the slope and the y-intercept when it's in standard form. Okay, what's the slope and y-intercept? I just asked that. Slope is negative A over B. The y-intercept is C over B. Every time. And the slope is always negative. Now, if A is already negative or B is already negative, okay, then the sign will change. So that's one of the reasons why in your homework last night I was having you identify A and B. Because if you can identify A and B, whatever their signs are, and you can pick off the slope without having to convert it into slope-intercept form. Now, here's why this works. So some of you were trying to convert this formula in your head into slope-intercept form, right? And if I convert this formula into slope-intercept form, it actually will look like that. So I move the AX term to the other side, which makes it negative. Then I have to get the Y by itself, so I have to divide everything by B. So if I took standard form and converted it into slope-intercept form, like you've done so many times, you just did it with actual numbers instead of variables, this is the general form of it, okay? So that's why this works, and that's why you can just remember this for a scenario when you have this standard form, okay? Obviously, if you have slope-intercept form, you already have the slope and the y-intercept, okay? This will become more useful to you as you work through this. It'll save you some time and trouble if you memorize that one. Questions about it? Okay, that's all you got? It's all yours.